It was late to return from the fair, so everyone came back to the palace. As Shivangi entered her room, she was momentarily taken aback. There was a faint light inside the room, and her nanny was already there waiting for her. It seemed as if they had been waiting for her for quite some time. As soon as the nanny's gaze fell on Shivangi, she quickly stood in front of her and asked in a stern tone, "Where have you been? And where are you coming from so late?" Shivangi was momentarily at a loss for words. She stood silent for a few moments, but then, instead of hiding anything, she told the whole truth. How she had gone to the festival, what the atmosphere was like there, how happy the people were, and how she had seen the world outside the palace walls so closely for the first time. Hearing Shivangi's words, the nanny was truly astonished. She immediately asked, "Did you take a bodyguard with you?" Shivangi slowly shook her head and replied, "No." Just then, the nanny's gaze fell on her hand, where there was a slight injury. Her face immediately filled with concern. "How did this injury happen?" she asked in a worried tone. Shivangi replied quite casually, "Maybe I got it while saving that boy." Hearing this careless response, the nanny's brows furrowed. Without saying anything, she immediately took Shivangi's hand in hers and began to bandage it. Then, in a stern tone, she said, "Princess, if you ever do something like this again in the future, we will inform the Maharaja ourselves and ensure that you receive appropriate punishment. Do you understand?" Then, looking at the injured hand, she almost scolded, "Look, how much your hand is hurt." Although her words were harsh, her hands were very gentle. She began to apply medicine to the wound very lightly, as if she didn't want Shivangi to feel even a little discomfort. Shivangi just smiled and looked at her. She knew that behind the nanny's scolding was only love, concern, and affection. After applying the ointment, the nanny ordered her to rest and left the room. As soon as she left, Shivangi changed her clothes, put on comfortable pajamas, and gently lay down on the bed. The room was silent. The cool breeze coming through the window was gently swaying the curtains. She began to recall all the events of the day: the festival, the crowd of people, the music, the lights, and then that incident. A faint smile appeared on her lips. But then, suddenly, the face of that injured boy emerged in front of her eyes. His injured state, his eyes, and his inability to even say thank you. Shivangi softly said to herself, "I hope you are okay." And as she said this, sleep began to overpower her eyelids. Moments later, she fell into a deep sleep. A week later, the Maharaja returned to the palace. He was sitting in his office, and in front of him stood a man in black clothes. This was the secret bodyguard who always protected the princess from the shadows. No one knew of his existence, not even Princess Shivangi. He only appeared when the princess's life was in danger. Today, he stood before the Maharaja, detailing all the events that had occurred over the past week. How the princess had disguised herself and participated in the festival without telling anyone. How she had fought off thugs to save an injured boy. And how she herself had gotten injured in the process. Listening to the bodyguard's words, the Maharaja fell into deep thought. Concern was clearly visible in his eyes. He was now realizing the growing distance between himself and Shivangi. That distance, which he had never taken seriously, was now piercing his heart deeply. But still, he couldn't say anything. After a few moments, he suddenly remembered. Whenever he used to go out of the state, Shivangi would always send him letters, short letters, which contained complaints, love, and a lot of questions. But this time, not a single letter came, not one. Thinking of this, a strange pang rose in the Maharaja's heart. Hearing the bodyguard's words, he realized that Shivangi was now completely ignoring him. Then he remembered another thing the bodyguard had said. Shivangi had an injury on her hand. Did she get hurt badly? As this thought crossed his mind, the Maharaja became restless. He got up from his chair and went to stand by the window. From there, his gaze fell on Shivangi sitting in the garden. She was sitting by her mother's grave. Books were open in front of her. Sometimes she would read, sometimes she would think, and sometimes she would start talking to herself softly. Seeing this scene, the Maharaja's heart filled with emotion. He felt like going to her right now, asking about her well-being, looking at her injured hand, and holding her close to his chest. But he couldn't do that. As always, he held himself back this time too. and slowly moved away from there. Yadavji's understanding. Seeing the Maharaja restless like this, Yadavji smiled slightly. He understood everything. He moved forward and approached the princess. He respectfully bowed and invited her for tea. Shivangi smiled and started walking with him. But as soon as she reached the table and saw the Maharaja there, she froze. Her steps stopped right there. I have to go there, she thought to herself. She didn't want to meet him, but now she had no other way. On the other hand, the Maharaja felt pleased that at least for a little while, he would be able to sit with his daughter. A formal meeting. Shivangi moved forward. She bowed her head and said in a formal tone, Maharaja, we greet you. We didn't know you were here, otherwise we wouldn't have come to trouble you. Maharaja. This single word pierced the Maharaja's heart like an arrow. She used to call him father before, but now she was merely calling him Maharaja. Her changed attitude, her coldness, and the growing distance between them. Everything was deeply troubling the Maharaja. But he said nothing. He just silently stirred the spoon in his cup of tea. Yadavji signaled Shivangi to sit down. Seeing no other option, Shivangi had to sit next to him. Memories of the past and a strange bitterness. As soon as Shivangi picked up the cup of tea, old memories flooded her mind. How she used to insist on having tea with the Maharaja to spend time with him, but the Maharaja often refused. How she always ordered tea made from the Maharaja's favorite flowers to make him happy. How whenever the Maharaja did agree, he would finish the tea without much conversation and leave. Today, the same tea, the same fragrance, the same taste, stood before her as a reminder of old pains. An unexpected response. Yadav-ji noticed that Shivangi was staring intently at the tea. He asked, What happened, princess? Do you not like the tea? Shivangi replied without any expression. Can we have another tea? Yadavji was taken aback. But this is the same tea that you and the Maharaja like. The Maharaja also wanted to hear the answer to this question. He turned his attention to Shivangi as well. After a few moments of silence, Shivangi slowly said, I did. Now I don't even like its fragrance. She paused for a moment. Then, in a light but very deep voice, she said, It brings back only unwanted memories. The Maharaja's stopping. Shivangi's words seemed to stop time for a few moments. The Maharaja's hands froze right there. He repeated in a very soft voice, unwanted. There was something in his voice, something that couldn't be expressed in words, regret, pain, and perhaps the fear of losing. Shivangi lowered her gaze, while the Maharaja just continued to look at her in silence. A long silence of unspoken words spread between them. Was this a new bitterness in their relationship, or the beginning of a new turn? Would the Maharaja now truly realize that he had lost his daughter, or was it still not too late? To find out, read the next chapter.